Hi, everyone. Let me know if you can hear me all right. You can type to ask me stuff, you can type in the side screen. Hi, hello, hi, everyone. I see your messages now. Let's just wait a few more minutes, see if anyone else will join us today. How are you all doing? Perfect. Right, okay. Well, first, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask me? Well, at least it's not raining. Yeah, it's not raining. Do you have any questions? And maybe I can start with some of them about Portuguese. Any situations that you've come into recently, or just general questions you might have about the language, or about me? Do you have any questions about me? Just waiting here. Oh, I'd like to apologize in advance. We might be getting a visit from my toddler when she wakes up from her nap. She might be a bit grumpy, so I apologize for any tears. Um, okay, well, whilst we wait for any questions, I thought we would talk a little bit more about some more false friends. So, false friends are words that sound similar in two languages but have different meanings. Sometimes they can have related meanings, but generally they don't mean the same thing. So let's start with the word idiom. So an idiom in English, in Portuguese would be, so idiom versus idioma. So idiom in English, or excuse me, idiom in Portuguese is expressão idiomática, so an idiomatic expression. But idioma in Portuguese means language. Here, maybe I can actually type the words here so you can see what I mean. Idioma. Idioma is how you would type that in, or spell it in Portuguese. Our next word would be ingenuity versus ingenuidade. Ingenuidade. So, ingenuity in Portuguese is actually criatividade, coming from creativity. Criatividade. Criatividade. But ingenuidade means naivety in Portuguese, so a different meaning. Our next set of words would be the word injury in English and injuria in Portuguese. Injuria. Injuria. So to say injury in Portuguese is actually ferimento. Ferimento. But injuria is actually the word for, or it is a word for insult in Portuguese. Insulto. So insult and insulto, you could probably guess that those are not false friends. They do mean the same thing, but injuria mean it's just another word for insults. Um, Another set of words is journal and jornal. Jornal means newspaper in Portuguese, and journal you would say diário, like from diary in Portuguese. Diário. Um, journal. Okay, you could also say that a journal in Portuguese, you could say it's uma revista especializada, so like a specialized magazine or specialized paper on something. You could also say that. Um, Legend and legenda. So legenda doesn't mean legend. Legend is actually lenda in Portuguese, and legenda means subtitles, subtítulos. So legenda or subtítulos are synonyms in Portuguese. Two more words, library and livraria. Livraria. So a library is actually biblioteca. Biblioteca. And livraria means bookshop. So it is related, but uma livraria is definitely not a biblioteca. Lunch versus lunch. Lunch in Portuguese means snack or snack time. It could be like a mid-afternoon snack or a mid-morning snack, typically, is what we use for that word in Portuguese, lunch. Lunch, however, on the other hand, is almoço. Almost. And we fall away from the word. So words that typically end in O, we typically fall away from the word in conversation, and even more so when it's in a sentence. I'm going to have my lunch. Vou comer o meu almoço. Or we do have a specific verb, which is literally to lunch. So almoçar. I would probably more likely say vou almoçar. Vou almoçar. I'm going to have my lunch. Notice versus notícia. Notícia means news, and notice, we actually have the verb notar or reparar. Reparar has a double meaning. Reparar can also mean to repair, like to repair in English. Next, I have office versus ofício. Ofício means craft / profession, to do with your trade, profession, ofício. And office is escritório. Escritório. This is a good one. So parents and parentes. So parents is actually pais, and parente is relatives. Your relatives is parente. It's not a very common word to use, though, in conversation. Like parente, maybe if you're filling out a form of some sort, you would see the word parente, or parentesco is probably more likely. Your what's your level of like what's the word? I'm lost now. Your not parentage, but your degree of familial connection, if that makes sense. Sorry, parentesco. This is in filling in forms, so not really a word that comes up often in conversation, like in just day-to-day kind of conversation. Next up, I have the words preservative versus preservativo. Relation, yeah. Preservativo, I completely butchered that word, hold on. Preservativo, like this, excuse me. So preservative in Portuguese is actually conservante. Conservante. And preservativo means condom. So maybe that might help some of you avoid some embarrassing conversations in the supermarket. You're asking about conservatives in your food, and you end up talking about condoms. So a bit awkward. Of course, the famous push versus push. So push is empurrar, and push is actually the command tense of pull. So it's the opposite, pull. The verb is puxar. To pull, puxar. And then we have pull versus pular. pular in Portuguese is also a verb, but it means to leap or to jump, in other words, to leap or to jump. Then we have to realize versus realizar. They are kind of close, they're related, but to realize in English is usually more used in the sense of to understand or to notice something. So perceber, to perceive or to understand. But realizar in Portuguese takes more on the meaning of to accomplish something, like, for lack of a better way to explain it, like to bring something into reality, to realize something, to realizar. To the next two words, so we have to record versus recordar. So to record is gravar, and recordar means to recall or remember. Then here we have relative versus relativo. So relative in English can mean your like your family relation to someone, or you can use it in the meaning of something is relative to or concerning. In Portuguese, it only has that second meaning. It doesn't mean your family connection. That is parente, as we've seen before, parente. Okay, next up in my list here for today, I have, so to resume in English versus resumo in Portuguese. Resumo. Resumo means summary, and to resume in Portuguese is actually retomar. Retomar, to retake, or reiniciar, to reinitiate. And then I have here for today retired versus retirado, or to retire versus retirar. So let's start with the verb first. So to retire in Portuguese is actually reformar-se. So it's reflexive. I can talk a little bit about that for those of you who don't are not familiar with that. Reformar-se. Reformar-se, to reform oneself is how you would literally translate that, to reform oneself. And but retirar, which sounds more like to retire, is actually to remove. So to remove something. And then retired versus retirado is so retirado is something that is removed, something that's been removed. An alternative word for so retired is actually reformado. Reformado. Reformed. I know that sounds a bit strange to say that in English, that you've been reformed, but that's how you would say I'm retired. Another way of saying I'm retired, less used, at least down here in the south, is aposentado. Aposentado. Aposentado also shows up more in more formal settings, particularly in written Portuguese, would be aposentado. And because these are descriptive words, they would have the feminine version of them as well. So they would all end in A, these last three that I typed. So you could have retirada, reformada, and aposentada, all ending in A's. And then the last one I had prepared for today was scholar versus escolar. Escolar. So a scholar in Portuguese is erudito. Erudito. Escolar, though, means something academic or something that relates to school, like the school bus or the school timetable. So school bus would be autocarro escolar. Autocarro escolar, for example, how you would use that. So I hope these were useful. They're the ones that I had ready for today. Does anyone have any questions for me? I would like to ask something more specific. Yeah, fire away. I often get asked about the different types of excuse me in Portuguese. Xícara. We found this when looking for the word cup. Yes, uma xícara is a word for a teacup, a type of small cup, uma xícara. Um, or shavna. Shavna is an alternative word. Shavna. Shavna. Um, from my experience, probably the one that's used more would be shavna or kaneka even, especially if you're talking about tea or coffee. Uma caneca de chá, uma chávena de chá, uma chávena de café, especially if it's small, like for uma bica, for example, that would be uma chávena. Kind of like to say that xícara is maybe slightly more on the Brazilian side to say uma xícara de chá. In terms of conversational Portuguese. You're welcome. You're very welcome, Sheila. Yeah, as I was saying, I sometimes get asked, or sometimes I get asked quite a bit actually, about the different types of excuse me. Some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with this and you would have heard this. Um, so to talk about excuse me, I need to talk about the different I'm sorry's that we have. Important to connect words in spoken language. Can you do it without? Hi, Elena. Um, I wouldn't say it's extremely important to do. You don't certainly don't have to do it. No, no, you can do it without. Um, what I do in my lesson, the thing about connecting words is just it makes it flow a bit easier. But no, you don't have to do it. It's not essential to into being understood. Um, question about gerunds, but big topic for another time. You're welcome, Yelena. No, I can talk a little bit about the gerunds. It doesn't have to be a big topic. We do have the gerund in Portuguese. In European Portuguese, however, it's not used as much as typically in Brazilian Portuguese. Um, so a gerund is kind of like the continuous tenses in English, but I tend we do tend to use more the estar verb, estar plus a plus infinitive. I'd like to hear a question about the gerund. So gerúndio in Portuguese. An ing word. Yeah. So an example of gerúndio that is actually used a lot, especially in Algarve, is andando. Just a comment in case there is anyone like me who isn't that familiar with YouTube. I could not see what you were typing just using the link from Facebook. Only see and hear you. Oh, okay. Um, I don't know. Are you watching me on a laptop or in a tablet? That might have something to do with it. I'm not sure, Adriana, to answer your question. You have to log into YouTube. Okay, all right. That was what I said yesterday. I wasn't sure if you needed to be logged in or if you could just do it without having an account. So that answers that question then. Okay. So yeah. So Sheila, you can tell me what the question is about the gerund. I mean, I kind of dove in. I kind of dove into the talking about it, but what's the actual question? That might be better to start from there. And let me just mute my phone. It keeps pinging here in the background. Okay, whilst we wait for the question, I'll continue talking about the excuse me situation. So to talk about excuse me, I need to talk about I'm sorry. So we have a few different I'm sorries in Portuguese. I'll start with lamento. Lamento. Their Wi-Fi seems to have weakened. We'll catch up with this lesson later. Okay, thank you, Sheila. Okay, we'll have to do the gerund one some other time. Or maybe I can talk about it after I do this. I'm sorry. So lament. Lamento means literally I lament, and it's a type of I'm sorry, which is more to be empathizing. So in a practical sense, it can translate into the sense of, oh, I regret to let you know this information, or it can be used in the sense of, oh, I'm very sorry to hear that, or oh, we're sorry, but that's not possible at this time. So in that kind of sense, lament. Lament doesn't necessarily mean we're using it as like a direct apology for something that we're apologizing for. So that's another way of using lament. Then we have lament can also be a bit of a stronger I'm sorry as well. Like a sad sorry can be quite if something bad has happened, but then it will depend on the I suppose the level of what's happened, of the sadness or terribleness. That's not a word. Sorry. So if someone, let's say someone has passed away, what we do tend to say in Portuguese more is sinto muito. Sinto muito, which literally means I feel very much, or I feel a lot. So we're that's quite a heavy I'm sorry. It's very sad. Someone's died. You would say sinto muito. I'm very sorry. Of course, the common sorry, everyday, today sorry is actually desculpe. Desculpe is a command tense, imperative. So from the verb desculpar, which means to literally to unblame. In other words, forgive or pardon. And that's where the sense of excuse me comes from, desculpe. Excuse me. So you can use this I'm sorry as in I'm apologizing, desculpe. We also say I ask for pardon, for unblaming. So peço desculpa. Start shortly, I never did. I had to go back and print the link again. And you had started already. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the problem with these YouTube live streams. You have to refresh the link. It won't just start. So yeah, I need to thank you. Thanks, Adriana. I will definitely include that in the next when I announce the next one. Thank you. So I apologize for that. Peço desculpa. So peço desculpa, I'm apologizing, I'm asking for, does that mean that desculpar means to blame? Not desculpar, but culpar, yes. Culpar. Culpar means to blame someone, to blame, yeah, culpar. I blame myself, culpo-me. Culpo-me, I blame myself. Interestingly enough, and that's what, yeah, no worries, you're welcome. You're very welcome. Okay, so then desculpe, you can use desculpe. So for I'm sorry, I'm asking for forgiveness, or you can use desculpe in the sense of calling someone's attention, like, oh, excuse me, can you help me with this? So desculpe pode ajudar-me. Can you help me? Or I need help, preciso de ajuda, for example. Asking for the bill, excuse me, can I have the bill? Desculpe, queria a conta. A conta, por favor, or se faz favor. A conta, por favor. Okay, there's quite some things to unpack in that last sentence, but we can can do that maybe another time. And then, of course, there's the question I get. So how do I get people to move out of the way if they're like in the way or something. That's where com licença comes in. Com licença also translates into excuse me. Literally what you're saying is with license, with permission. So that's the one you would use if you're trying to get past someone. So you can actually even combine both. You could say desculpe com licença, because the first one is desculpe, calling the person's attention, and then com licença would be the request. Because this is why if you just say desculpe to someone who's in the way and you don't say anything else, you get a blank stare, because people will be like, oh, that obviously wasn't meant for me, because desculpe means excuse me, I need your attention, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Speaking about the gerund, so without knowing what the question was, but we don't. So typically, in most sentences, using the gerund as the continuous tense is not used very much. It is used, but not as much as it would be in comparison to Brazilian Portuguese, for example. So I was giving an example of andando. Dando. So that's the gerund form of the verb andar. And that means to walk, or it can mean, depending on the context, to ride, like to ride a bike, or to go by means of, as maybe a better way I could say andar de carro. But so we would say in Portuguese, like if I'm in a group and I'm about to leave to go about my day, I could say vou andando. Vou andando. This is, if I was to compare it to English, this is like we're saying, well, I'm off. I'm heading, I'm going, I'm leaving. Wandand. So literally what you're saying is I'm walking, is what that would literally translate into, but the meaning of it is more in the sense of, well, it's my time, I'm off, I'm heading home now, or wherever I need to go. Wandand. But if it's like in the sense of, oh, what are you doing right now? What are you doing? We do tend to say more using the verb estar. So what, o que, and then you are, let's say I'm speaking to a friend, so informally, o que estás a fazer. So what you are at to do. And this would translate into, what are you doing right now? I could technically use a gerund there, o que estás fazendo. O que estás fazendo. So o que estás a fazer and o que estás fazendo mean exactly the same thing. Which one's used more? I would like to say o que estás a fazer is used more generally throughout the country. I've heard this more than o que estás fazendo. But of course, you can definitely use o que estás fazendo. There's nothing wrong with using it. It's fine. It's correct. Nothing to o que estás fazendo. Yeah, no, that's fine. O que estás a fazer, o que estás fazendo. Does anyone have any more questions for me? Sendo, yes, sendo is another good example of a gerund that is used a lot. It's from the verb ser, to be. Are you hearing sendo in the sense of assim sendo or sendo assim? This is an expression that's said a lot. It means so being. Sendo assim sendo. Sendo assim, vou andando. That's probably a good, yeah, exactly. Sendo assim, more see it in newspaper. Yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah, so being means so being. Sendo assim. I'm trying to think of more practical senses of when I myself would use definitely use a gerund. I can think of a situation like if I'm arranging something with someone and we're in a group and like we're saying, well, you do this and I'm going to do this, and then we're maybe waiting on someone else, and then we just said, oh well, we'll head on and start this. I would definitely use a gerund in that context. I would probably say, assim sendo, or sendo assim, vamos fazendo, for example. Sendo assim, vamos, or starting, let's say, vamos começando. Começando. So being, we are, see that this is the problem with translations. This is going to translate really badly. So being, we're going to starting, which of course we don't speak like that in English. That makes zero sense in English. Well, not zero sense, but it doesn't flow very well in English. But the meaning is, yeah. So being, we'll get started. We will get started. Um, I have some more false friends here that I can talk about. So of course, the famous constipação and constipation, that they do not mean the same thing. So constipação means to have a cold. So in other words, it's coming from constipation of your nasal passages. So constipação. The other constipation, the other constipation is obstipação. Obstipação, from obstruction. Obstipação. So if you're going to the pharmacy and you're describing cold symptoms and they give you constipação medicine, it's the right medicine. Okay. Cave and cave. So cave actually means basement. And cave in Portuguese is gruta. We're relating to the word grotto in English. Salsa. Salsa is parsley. You can use salsa to mean Mexican salsa, but you have to say salsa mexicana to get to the like salsa sauce. Salsa mexicana. Otherwise, you're going to end up with parsley salsa. Street versus strada. So street is actually, and rua versus road, they're actually opposite. So strada in English is actually road and rua is street. So it's the other way around. And then of course, rat and rato. Rato is actually mouse and rat is ratazana. Ratazana. I wonder if maybe you're struggling with typing. Maybe you can't see what I'm typing. Let me see here. Does anyone send me? Okay, that's not it. Kind of difficult to plan these things with everything being shut and having to stay indoors. I can see it, but I'm definitely an amateur. Oh, bless you. I'm sure you're grand. You're all right. Listen, I'm not brilliant at this myself. This is like literally my second time doing this, and here's hoping I'll improve over time. Uh, it keeps cutting out. So obrigado, até a próxima. Thank you so much for coming, Adriana. Thank you. Of course, everyone's on the internet now, aren't they? Stuck at home and trying to log in, and it's difficult. There's been a lot of things streaming lately, and people doing live streams through Facebook as well. I've seen Zumba classes and spinning classes, the cooking lessons. I've seen all sorts online. It's been quite interesting. Although I haven't been able to watch any because I am still working. I'm doing all lessons online at the moment. Um, Ficar is used in a number of different scenarios. Can you talk about the use of this verb? Yes, Paul, I can, of course. So ficar means to stay or to remain. However, and I trust that this is possibly where it's getting confusing, is ficar can be used to substitute the verbs to be. And if you're familiar with the verbs to be, so there's two of them in Portuguese. We have ser and estar. Oops, I'm not typing. Ser and estar. And ficar can actually be used in substitution for both of these. So, but because of the differences, it's important to know when to use ser and when to use estar. So, ser is many books and teachers describe it as being a permanent thing, which is true. I just find that description a bit incomplete. I'd like to think or to say more that ser is a what. So what something is, an essential quality. So in that sense, permanent. So what does that mean? So things like your nationality, your gender, your without wanting to trigger anyone with that one, just open a can of worms there, didn't I? So your nationality, if you're tall or short, these are things that you can't. They're not. They won't change. Where you're from doesn't matter. Where you move to in the world, you're always were born in that place and you're from that place. What things are made of, the time, things that, although time ticks onwards, it's still a what, and I'll explain that after I'll come back to that in a minute. And where something is, but where only for locations, things that are fixed map, geographical locations, so towns, countries, buildings, things that don't move around. Estar is everything that is changing or moving or temporary, or it's a how. So it's how something is. So this includes things like the weather, your emotions, and pretty much it in that sense. Things that are in flux that can move. Yes, it can answer where, but only for people and objects, things that move around in space. So I could say faro, fica. So coming back to the fica, so I could say faro é, that's from ser, it is, or fica no Algarve. Faro fica no Algarve. But if I'm using it, so I'm happy, so I would say estou feliz. So it's something that's in flux, estou feliz. But if I say fico feliz, I could say fico feliz regarding my feelings. And it would translate into I stay happy, but what it really means is I become happy. It's like you would use this type of sentence like when you say, "Oh, I'm so happy to hear that." In Portuguese, you would say I stay happy. Or let's say something really upsetting happened, and you would say, "Oh God, I was really annoyed at that." In Portuguese, you would say fiquei aborrecida, or fiquei chateada. I stayed. So it can mean to become or is in the sense of geographical locations. I hope that has cleared up some of your questions, Paul. Fiquei aborrecida. I was annoyed. I became annoyed. Upset can also mean translate into upset. You're welcome. Okay, brilliant. Doesn't look like we'll be getting a visit today. She's sleeping a lot. Been asleep for a while. This is my child. 2 hours? Is everyone in Portugal that's watching me right now? Are you in Portugal or are you in a different country? So yeah, so I live in the Algarve, Lagos. Okay, Lagos. So I'm in the Tavira area, East Algarve. Lagos has a really interesting accent. So if you've been watching my videos, you probably have noticed that my accent would be a little bit different to the Lagos accent. It's still an Algarvian accent, obviously, but there are differences. Um, Lagos também. Okay, cool, awesome. Lagos. Uh, there's a YouTuber actually that is from Lagos, Portuguese guy. He doesn't do lessons, but he does a lot of like social caricatures of Portuguese behavior. Does a lot of like music videos. Uh, um, it's a good channel to watch for just to get the accent because he's definitely from West Algarve. Uh, you can really hear his accent. No, still in France, of course. Oh, Elena. Oh no, things in France are getting very serious. I just saw our president here there briefly at lunchtime. He was saying that it's looking like we're in the fourth day now of consecutive less percentage in the curve in our numbers. We're obviously still getting numbers, or people are still getting ill, but um, we seem to be heading in the right direction. So he was actually saying that maybe our peak, they were predicting it would be around mid-April, but it might actually be a little bit after that because if we are successful in flattening the curve, it will slow down or stretch out the um, of course now I can only think of the Portuguese word. Sorry, the will stretch out the date for when we were supposed to have the peak. Instead of having a peak over a day or two or three, it might be stretched out over a week. But then I had to leave. I didn't hear his whole speech. So I don't know. Up north, things are getting quite serious. Here in Portugal, I don't know, there seems to be a lot of people still just out and about and going for a walk and just kind of, I don't know, standing around and just, it's like, okay, this doesn't seem like leaving the house for essential trips, but I don't know, just all seems a little bit surreal. This whole thing, all of it is all surreal. Outside my building here, I'm still seeing a lot of traffic. It is less than normally there would be, but it's still like pretty much every minute there's a car driving past. So it's like it doesn't feel any different to any other day, to be honest. There's still some people walking up and down. And yesterday I saw a family, or not yesterday, on Sunday I saw a family. I don't know, running, doing laps in the car park here in front of the building. It's like, yeah, I mean, I can understand people want to stretch their legs and get some air, and I mean, can completely understand that. But it almost like, so you've never ridden a bike before in your life. Now that we're in quarantine, all of a sudden there's people out on their bikes. Sorry, it's just an observation. I just think it's interesting. Maybe I'm just noticing it more now because I'm confined to the house. That could be it. That could be it as well. I don't know. Uh, I hope it's not lagging too much. I definitely think the internet has definitely been very slow. Yesterday evening, I was trying to Skype with some friends, and it was really bad. The connection. Okay, maybe I can talk about some vocabulary relating to uh, well, the big topic of the moment. Or you're probably all sick and tired of that. I don't know. What can we talk about? Well, and I listen together, and there's still no lag. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Um, okay. I will have to log off soon because I do have a lesson to do today. Um, okay, let's talk about if you need to, if you start developing symptoms. So the word for symptom is sintoma, sintoma, and it's masculine. Although it ends in a, it happens to be a masculine word. This is a pattern in Portuguese. Most words, or off the top of my head now, I can't think of an example where words that end in ma are masculine. So it's o sintoma, o sintoma. So if someone is asking you what kind of symptoms you have, it would be que tipo de sintomas tem? Que tipo de sintomas? The question can also come in the sense of what type of symptoms are you having? So you could have a gerund there if you wanted to use the gerúndio. Que tipo de sintomas está a ter or a sentir? Ter, sentir. Sentir means to feel. Ter is to have. Que tipo de sintomas está a ter or sentir? You could say, I have a cough. So in Portuguese, you would just say, I have cough. Tenho tosse. So it ends in E, falling away from the word. And tenho, we kind of do follow a whisper. It's more like a whispered, oh, tenho, instead of tenho. Tenho or tenho tosse. Tenho tosse. I have fever. Tenho febre. Tenho febre. Tenho tosse, tenho febre. Whenever you have any kind of ache, and even outside this context, any kind of ache or pain, like a headache or a stomach ache. So in English, we say stomach ache, headache. body aches or body pains. In Portuguese, we word it the other way around. It's pain of, and then the body part. So a headache is a pain of head. Dor de cabeça. A sore throat is a pain of throat. So dor de garganta. Dor de garganta. I have body ache, so pain. So you could say it in the plural there. So dores on the body or in the body, no corpo. Dores no corpo. Oh, someone's up. I hear someone. Dor de cabeça, dor de garganta, dor no corpo. I can't remember now what the other symptoms are. Hey, you gonna say hello? No?